Hello folks, I've got my tea ready for this one. It's going to be a big video. I'm not sure how long it's going to be, but this is a topic that I can't really skimp out on. I've been told a lot of the time, hey, we talk about Games Workshop storytelling a lot, but we don't really offer any solutions. I get that a lot. Do you know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe it's time we offered some solutions. Today I'm going to talk about probably the greatest misstep in Games Workshop's writing history, and that is the fall and story of Horus Lupercal. A lot of people say about the channel, you're very hard on Games Workshop sometimes. I always try and give credit where it's due. I love this hobby, and I love the models, I love the background setting, I love everything about it, right? That doesn't mean I don't think things can not be improved, right? A double negative there, but you know what I'm saying. Things absolutely can get better, and there are some missteps that Games Workshop have taken over the years that really do leave the head scratching a little bit on where this was going in the first place, and who in their right mind came up with these ideas. One of those bugbears I've always had in my head was Horus himself. So Horus Lupercal, the literal reason we are all here. He is the keystone of Warhammer 40,000. Without his decisions and actions, the setting as we know it simply does not exist. Before we go into the video, you should know a little bit about the Horus heresy before we start. You might get a bit confused, but I'm guessing if you clicked on the video, you already are well aware of Horus' story and what happens in the Horus heresy, right? So we're going to move on from there. I believe these things about Horus Lupercal. I believe he's so important to the setting. But I also believe that Horus is the greatest misstep, as I said before, Games Workshop have ever made in terms of writing quality and quality story content. Yeah, the biggest one. Literally. There are no bigger missteps than this. Horus is literally the biggest one. And if you follow the channel for a long time, you know how much we talk about Games Workshop stories going off the rails sometimes, not making too much sense, not being very well written at times. This is the worst. And it's the most pivotal one too. When Horus Rising came out, way back in the day, what was it, 2006? We were treated to a Horus as a character who had very little in the way of flaws. His story was told through the eyes of Garviel Loken, a great character in his own right. This is the first massive issue, however. The Horus Heresy series had not started to show us viewpoint chapters from Primarchs yet. The first couple of books in the actual series of Horus Heresy were all built around showing us the Primarchs from afar through the eyes of others, right? There were these otherworldly things that were just there. I'm guessing the writers didn't really know how to write Primarchs at this point. They were kind of figuring it out. So, this is the first massive issue, right? The Horus Heresy series has not started to show us viewpoint characters from Primarch's point of views yet. We never get to hear what Horus actually thinks about the situations he is in. Do you know where the first chapters are where we see Horus actually speaking to us? When he is struck down on Davin, and in the dreams where he will be corrupted to serve chaos. Yeah, that late. He's already in the dream state that will turn him towards chaos. Now, we'll get into why that's nonsense in a minute, but what are the main problems of Horus as I see them in the current story? Well, there are a few. The first one is whiplash. Horus, until his wounding on Davin, is very sound of mind. He's a bit arrogant, sure, but he's a Primarch. He's not just any Primarch, he's the Warmaster dude. He's allowed to be a little bit up himself. All of a sudden, though, with his dream state, he has all of these resentments towards the Emperor out of almost nowhere. There is no build-up, no crack in the armour that was always there. I believe if we heard more from Horus, or we change things completely to have him be the main character as well as Loken in these books, we can solve these issues. But at the moment, because when we spend no time in Horus's head before he's corrupted by chaos, we don't get to see why he's turning. We don't get to see any sort of internal chinks in the armour, as I've just mentioned before, where chaos could get in. He goes from being the most beloved son of the Emperor and being totally loyal to him to being a maniacal maniac, right? The second one is the lack of motivation. Why should Horus want to burn the galaxy down if he can't rule it? What has driven him to become so maniacal? We're never really shown. We're told at certain points, through Abaddon and people, the Emperor's going to abandon us and things like that, but we never hear it from Horus's own mouth. And we never see it. We never see him wrestling with these decisions, or wrestling with these, implications of what the Emperor might be doing. It's literally, Horus is fine until he isn't. We're never really told what his motivations are. His motivations are hand-waved away. And that's not good. For the person, the keystone, the fulcrum around which the entire setting revolves, that's not good. We are told he adores the Emperor and is nervous about living up to him, and in the space of half a book, False Gods into Galaxy in Flames, we see a complete about-face in this outlook. All it takes is him being wounded by a magical knife covered in feces and a dream state. Some obvious lies are told to him by a few gods, and here he is, the main villain, ladies and gents, ready to rock and roll. That, to me, is very weak storytelling, and it comes from a time in the Horus Heresy novels where they weren't really sure whether they were going to be a success or not, or how many of these books they were going to write. Which is why the quality doesn't hold up to me. But the fact that they've kept that quality, they said, no, that's legit, that's canon, right? He was stabbed by a poo sword, and now he's had a conversation with the Chaos Gods. Now all of a sudden he hates the Emperor. Dude, weak storytelling, really, really bad. It's one of the main cruxes that I don't like about 40k in terms of the storytelling. Horus's motivations for turning against the Emperor are nonsense. By the way, here's the thing: they're not actually nonsense. They're just never explained really, which makes them nonsense. The third one, and this is kind of the biggest one for me, and might surprise you. The third reason why Horus just doesn't work: he has no real hope of success. Think about it. Even if Horus turns against the Emperor, most of the Primarchs are not close enough to him to come over to his side. We are shown this in the Horus Heresy. We're literally shown this. Most of the Primarchs are kind of resentful that he's the Warmaster. There's a few who like him, don't get me wrong. Right? But even the one who likes him the most, Sanguinius, wouldn't join him in being a traitor. In fact, the largest and most capable legions that are capable of hurting him and his cause are actively set against his rebellion and always will be. The Ultramarines and Dark Angels are the two danger legions, and Horus does an admirable job of keeping them away from Terra for as long as possible when the heresy kicks off. But even with all of his power, he needs to duel the Emperor to have a chance of winning, even with all of it, even with the deck stacked in his favour. In short, when Horus makes his decision to turn against the Emperor in Galaxy in Flames and False Gods, he is not empowered by Chaos yet, which means he has next to no chance of succeeding at all. The legions who do come to his side do so out of convenience or because they are forced to do so by Chaos. No sane Primarch of Horus's intellect level would make the decision to turn against the Emperor out of sheer logic, if nothing else. Horus would know and understand, there is no way I can win this war, even if I wanted to fight it. And Horus shouldn't want to fight it. He's Horus. You've given us absolutely no motivations of why Horus would want to turn against the Emperor. You've hinted at things here and there, but when you read these books, he's not really given that motivation. In fact, I said this the other day, Horus turns against the Emperor in the Horus Heresy because the plot demands that he do so. And Games Workshop do this all of the time. A lot of their writing decisions that their supposedly great authors make, they're made because the plot needs them to happen. We need Horus to be the traitor, the leader of the traitors, so he's going to be that. And bollocks to the logic that gets us there. Right? But what these people don't seem to understand is that logic is what builds your world. It's what gives it credence. It's what gives it depth and feel and meaning. If you take that away and just say Horus is now a traitor because he had a bad dream and was stabbed by a poo sword, that doesn't really fly with me. And it didn't even in 2006. And I was a moron in 2006, right? How old was I in 2006? What, 20? 18? Yeah, 18. No, not even, yeah, 18. I was a moron. And even I was like, no, dude, this is stupid. Like, I'm sitting there reading. I'm like, I love these books. I love watching Space Marines do their thing in their prime of life. It's awesome. But this guy's a bit of a moron. Like, if he's turning against the Emperor because he's having a poo dream, he's a bit of a moron. Especially when Magnus is there, right, in his dream, and he unmasks everything. It says, no, look, they're trying to fool you. Horus still goes along with it. This guy's a fucking moron. I'm sorry, he just is. Right? It's not well written at all. Okay? And now the Horus Heresy, please guys, don't get me wrong. The Horus Heresy has some amazing moments and some really good books that I really enjoy reading. And some of which are the first 3 books. They're really good. They're not bad at all. But Horus Turning was one of the most, shall we say, not phoned in. It was kind of phoned in, I'm going to be honest. They did phone it in. It's almost like when they get to a certain point in the lore that's really important, they kind of shy away from it and go into metaphysics to cover up the fact that they don't know what to do. It's the main reason why the duel between Horus and the Emperor, in my opinion, is so wacky. Right? It's really, really wacky, and they don't explain anything. They're like, oh, it's all metaphysical, and the stars are aligning, and da-da-da-da. And you're like, dude, you didn't have the balls to write an honest-to-God duel scene, so you just hand-waved it away in metaphysics and playing card games, the tarot game, for God's sake, right? Things like that. You throw all of these confusing, very long words that you've learnt in a thesaurus somewhere to try and make it seem like it's more in-depth than it actually is. The only thing you needed to do in the duel between Horus and the Emperor was show them fighting, right? Say that nobody else can really see what's going on, and they're almost annihilated by the sheer shock of these two guys fighting, and then you show the actual fight from Horus's eyes. Maybe even the Emperor's eyes. That'd be cool, right? You don't need to go into metaphysics. You don't need to go into different planes of the warp. You don't need to go fighting in other planes. No, just have them fight in the vengeful spirit. Stop over-egging the pudding because you don't know what to do. And that is what happens with Horus's fall as well. They over-egg the pudding because they don't know what to do. Right? I'm going to say they as well, because I don't blame Dan Abnett for this, by and large. He wrote the books, but at the same time, I think there is a committee there. You are not writing these books in a vacuum, right? Multiple interviews have told us that. ADB's told us that. Dan Abnett's told us that, right? Graham McNeil told us that. He mentioned that in a really good interview with Amber King that he did. These aren't written in a vacuum. You have people there to talk to bounce ideas off of, to go on about lore and what should and shouldn't happen, right? This is a team effort. Maybe one guy's name on the front of the book. Yeah, they were the lead writer on that book, but it's a team effort, right? They're the ones putting the words down, but the ideas aren't always theirs, right? These books are massive for Games Workshop, which is why they're not written by committee, but the ideas that go into them certainly are by committee. Formulaic as well. They're by committee. So it's not just the authors who are, In fact, there have been cases of Chris Raitt and Graham McNeil and other writers who have gone against that committee in the past in books like Fulgrim, right? That have made amazing books out of that. Fulgrim is one of the best books I've ever read, period. Not just Warhammer, period. It's a fantastic, tragic book. And most of the scenes, I'm telling you now, I don't know this for a fact, but I'm telling you, most of the scenes that are in that make you go, wow. Right? They will be from Graham McNeil and not by the committee that's backing him to write those books. I'm telling you now. I'd love to have him answer that question in future at some point. But anyway, that is where we are with these books. When they don't know what to do, they rely on metaphysics. They rely on big words to try and confuse you, to obfuscate you, smoke and mirrors, right? That is what happens with Horus's fall, unfortunately. It doesn't work from a mechanical standpoint, and these writers are very clever. Dan Abnett is not a stupid guy. The guy can write, right? The guy can write his ass off. I read Eisenhorn, we've heard that ad nauseum. But a guy can work his ass off, right? He's very, very, very clever as a writer. And he's a good writer, by the way, But a writer knowing that knows the crux, that the bad hand that they've been dealt, right? If we are sticking to Horus being wounded by a sword covered in poo, which is what happens, right? He's wounded by an anathane blade geared to his own soul that is now covered in feces from Nurgle's rot, right? Stabs him. Right? Oh, God, I've been stabbed. Then he has a dream, and then he turns to chaos. Even when it's shown as a farce, even when Magnus turns up and unmasks everything and shows him the truth of the matter, he still sides with chaos. I'm going to use the R word here. That's retarded. That's retarded. That's really, really, really bad writing. And honestly, I don't really blame Dan Abnett for that. This is a fault with the deeper lore of 40k. It doesn't work. It's silly. This is lore that was written before the Horus Heresy books, right? This is lore that was written by the studio to kind of hand-wave the fact that Horus turned to the Emperor, right? And then it's codified in the Horus Heresy books. So how do we fix it? Alright, North, stop moaning. How do we fix it? Alright. Well, let me explain the rules first. Because recently, over the past several weeks, I say several weeks, several months really, me and the Northern Exile community have been getting together on Sundays to do a live stream where we rebuild the Warhammer 40,000 universe from scratch, right? We started with the Emperor, and now we're moving on to the Horus Heresy, and last Sunday, we actually did the Sons of Horus, and we came up with some really good ideas that I wanted to codify and put into this video here. So let me explain the core rules of the Exile verse before we go anywhere. There's only two, really. The first one, we work with what we have. Traitor legions stay traitor legions, and, so and so forth. This is not the Dornian heresy. We have to work within the limitations of what we need to do. So we need to get the Emperor from A to B, right? How he gets there is now up to us. We need to get Horus from being a loyal son to being the leader of the traitors, right? We need to stay within those parameters, but how he gets there is now up to us. Okay. And number two, this is the second and big, it doesn't sound very big, but it is a big change. The second thing, the Primarchs were sent into the galaxy on purpose as children by the Emperor to lock down worlds for his eventual conquest. Each Primarch homeworld has tech or something on it that the Emperor desperately needs. Right? So he sends out the Primarchs there in the hope that they will survive, because he knows they probably will, and that they will probably grow up to lead those human nations on those worlds, because he needs what's on them. Right? He needs those worlds to be prepped, ready for his arrival when he comes. Right? So, the Chaos Gods don't have a stupid portal that they just have for some reason, and they don't just scatter the Primarchs across the galaxy, because why would they do that? If you have a portal, why didn't you just take them to the realm of chaos and torture them till they joined your side, and then send them back and destroy the Emperor's plans? What's going on? The law makes no sense. Okay, calm down. Calm down. Alright. Those are the two rules. Let's go into how we fixed Horus Lupercal. And I'm going to stand by this too. We did fix it. And you will see how in a minute. Literally. I was so proud of them. They did so well, man. Alright. Number one. Horus, in this setting, was the first Primarch to be found. Okay? Just like he is in real life. But he is found in the gang hives of Terra, not Chthonia, and is educated in the Imperial Court by the Emperor and Malcador for decades. Alright? So this gives the Lunar Wolves that similar, the ones from the Ganga hive are more loyal to Horus, where the ones taken from the Imperial nobility are more loyal to the Emperor, but they're all part of the same legion, So that legion split will still happen eventually. With Garviel Loken, for instance, being from the nobility, right? He's from the Terran nobility, where Abaddon, Ezekiel Abaddon, is from the Ganga hives on Terra, right? Okay. This makes him a brilliant politician. That is his main power. He is able to politic better than any other Primarch, on top of being the best general and combatant, or at least one of the best, because of his time learning from the Emperor directly, right? So Rabute Gilliman may be an empire builder, a logistical person, right? Horus is literally a politician. That's what he is. He's the politician who is also amazing in combat and at war. The Emperor treats Horus as a tool rather than a son, but slowly, as the centuries passed, becomes more fond of Horus, and through him more fond of the other Primarchs, and eventually does see them as sons rather than numbers. By the time he does, however, it is already far too late. Horus takes this all with, panache, says, okay, yeah, I'm a tool for war. That's fine. That's what I'm built for, right? Horus knows this. It doesn't eat at him yet. Alright, second part. Lorgar is the second Primarch to be found by the Great Crusade, not Leman Russ. He is found on Molech, his home world, where, as you will know, there is a secret Chaos Gateway that the Emperor used to gain his knowledge to create the Primarchs aeons ago. Here's the thing though, Lorgar should not be here. His pod was bound for Colchis when the Emperor sent it out, and this unnerves the Emperor. After briefly telling Horus to let Lorgar know that worshipping gods is not allowed in the Imperium, he leaves to check on Colchis where there is a project that he needs to nail down. We can say that there are things there that are going to be used for the Webway project, right? But, we never learn what those are because they're not really important to this part of the story. Lorgar sees this and transfers his hero worship from the ungrateful Emperor to Horus, seeing him as the son of God and the God Emperor's heir. Horus, whilst embarrassed by this, goes along with it. It feels good to have a brother, and he doesn't want to lose him. It's a very human reaction by Horus. He's embarrassed. He says, oh, stop, dude. I'm not the son of God. Just chill, right? Let's just be bros, right? We'll be friends. We'll be bros. It feels good to have another one, right? Number 3. Molech is taken from Lorgar, who is kind of pissed, and he is given Colchis instead after the Emperor has raided it of all of its worth, as a recruitment fief. It should be obvious why Molech is taken away from Lorgar, right? There's a chaos thing on there. He and Horus stay together for the vast majority of the Great Crusade, winning victory after victory. All the while, Lorgar is telling Horus that he is the Emperor's heir, and that one day their father will look to him to take his place, as is the natural way of kings and emperors, right? Lorgar leaves chaplains and other marines behind on worlds conquered by his legion and the Lunar Wolves' legion, spreading the faith that Horus is the son and heir of the God Emperor, in all intents and purposes, an archangel, right? Number 4. Erebus, here he is, shit stain. Erebus, now serving the Chaos Gods as he is from Molech, finds a real Thunder Warrior and brings him to Horus. The Thunder Warrior tells Horus of their betrayal by the Emperor, which horrifies Horus. He chooses not to believe him and executes him, but the seed is planted. Horus is slowly realizing that there will be no place for the Astartes in the numbers they now possess in a galaxy that is at peace. The Astartes might still be there, but they will be very low in number. Or there may even be new ones made to replace them, i.e. the Primaris Marines. He was right, because in the Exile verse, the Primaris Marines were always the plan of the Emperor to replace the old legions. Mind wiped, mind washed, completely loyal to the Emperor and nobody else. Alright. Around this time, the 2 missing legions are also annihilated and expunged from Imperial record, further driving home Horus's paranoia about what the Emperor will do to them when he has what he wants. And we have that wonderful short story of Horus confronting Malcador when the 2 statues of the lost Primarchs are taken down, right? And Malcador has to slap him down for being impudent. That happens as well in the Exile verse, because I love that story so much. Alright, number 5. The Emperor leads the Great Crusade to Ullanor. He fights beside Horus in a great victory against the Orcs, and for a moment he reaffirms Horus's faith in him. He declares Horus the Warmaster, much to the delight of Lorgar. Horus thinks about asking the Emperor about the Thunder Warriors, but decides against it, still deathly afraid of what his father is capable of when he looks at the fate of the 2 lost legions and the 2 empty plinths where the statues used to be on Terra. Very understandable reaction by him there. So whenever a Primarch or a character makes a decision where you think, well, why didn't he just do this? There needs to be a reason why he didn't, right? I bet you were thinking, well, now he's with the Emperor again, why doesn't he just ask him about the Thunder Warriors? Straight up. Well, there's a reason for that. He's afraid. He thinks if I become a problem here, he might just kill me and get rid of me. Right? Number 6. The Great Crusade rumbles on for another century, until the Emperor discovers what Lorgar has been doing with the worlds he and Horus have conquered together. He orders the Ultramarines to reconquer the world the Wordbearers and Lunar Wolves brought into compliance together, as they are not compliant. Those who resist, and many do, are given exterminatus by the Dark Angels. Again, we're setting up the Ultramarines and Dark Angels as legions that, aren't liked by Horus. Upon hearing this, Lorgar returns to Kur, one of the world that were annihilated, and is humbled by the Emperor. His faith is stripped from him just as it is in the first heretic. He heads into exile and is eventually turned to chaos in his trauma by Erebus and Cor Phaeron. Right, because I love that book. Alright, number 7. Upon hearing of this massacre, Horus flies into a rage and sees the broken worlds for himself. Now, he still has the largest record, or he did have the largest record of compliant worlds, right? Because he only, about 50% of his time conquering the galaxy was spent beside Lorgar on the Wordbearers, right? But half of those worlds are now registered as non-compliant, which now means he's no longer the most successful Primarch. So that also starts to eat away at him as well. He can see what the Emperor has done and sees it as a wholly evil thing to do and totally against the supposed enlightened plan of the Emperor that he had for the galaxy. He calls into question everything he knows about the Emperor. And when he demands an audience with his father to explain himself, he is denied and told to continue the Great Crusade, which he takes very poorly. Unbeknownst to him at this point, though, is that Magnus has found out through scrying that the Horus heresy is coming and has ruined the Emperor's Webway project in an attempt to warn him about it. So, the Emperor could not leave Terra now to see Horus, even if he wanted to. You can see the machinations of the Dark Gods, right? And how they're slowly turning people against each other in a way that's actually believable and involves no poo swords, right? Number 8. Devastated, Horus and Lorgar meet again, and Lorgar explains that the worlds were eradicated because they believed in Horus over the Emperor, something the Emperor could not abide, which is kind of a half-truth, really. He takes Horus to Molech and shows him the portal to the Chaos Gods, telling Horus that there are those in the galaxy who would like to speak to him about the Emperor's true nature. Horus, kind of not trusting this but needing answers, agrees. In the portal, Horus fights for thousands of years, leading vast armies, and is locked in debate with the Chaos Gods over the Emperor's true nature. Finally, he is convinced, understandably so, and is supercharged by the Chaos Gods. All his resentment, insecurities about the Emperor's plans, and the revelation that the Primarchs were created using the power of the warp, all drive him to make the decision to cast his father down. He does this, though, at a service to his father. He thinks he's doing the right thing, even for the Emperor. He wishes to use the warp where his father shies away from it, and the Horus heresy begins in earnest. Alright. So now we're at the part where things are going to just, cascade onwards and downwards into being, absolutely horrible. So number 10. Before I go to number 10, you should be able to see now why Horus has made the decision to turn to Chaos, right? Horus's decision now should be understandable, and yeah, do you know what? I get that. I get why he's turned to Chaos, right? I get why this is a thing. It's understandable. He's made an understandable decision. He's not backed into a corner. He's not dying because he was stabbed with an infected sword. No, he's literally... He makes a logical decision and says, you know what? I can do this. I can do this, right? The Emperor's gone too far. He's annihilated these worlds. He's eradicated 2 of my brothers for next to nothing. He's, embarrassed my brother, and he's creating new Space Marines, and I know that. The Primora Space Marine project is revealed to Horus here, right, by the Chaos Gods. He's going to replace you, dude. That's what he's planning to do. In the Exile verse, Belisarius Call doesn't do a secret, 100,000, 500,000 Marine project and keep it secret from everybody. No, that's stupid, right? The Emperor did it. The Emperor always meant to replace the Space Marines because they were meant to die off. The original Space Marines were meant to die off. Right? Whether he would have killed them himself or not, we leave that up to the reader. But all of those things combine to get Horus to go, do you know what? I can't trust this guy. I love him, but he's lost his way. He has lost his way, and I need to save the galaxy. Horus, in his own mind, is saving the galaxy. He's not burning it down. Alright, number 10. The Horus heresy plays out just as it does in the real lore. But for the sake of brevity, right, in the Exile verse that we've rewritten, quite a few other things happen in the Horus heresy. Conrad Kurz is killed by his own legion when he remains loyal, for instance. And that was a really good episode. If you want to know what happens there, it is in the live streams on the channel. Go and check it out. When Horus is slain by the Emperor, the only two warriors left alive on the Vengeful Spirit are Loken and Abaddon. We're back to Garviel Loken again, right? So Garviel Loken and Abaddon are the only two Marines left alive in the Vengeful Spirit. All the other sons of Horus are fleeing the planet on different ships or are being cut down, right? Only Horus's most trusted commanders and Marines were on the Vengeful Spirit. Which means there's only about a couple of hundred of them on there, and they're all dead, apart from Abaddon. Alright. They are two tired warriors. And when they're left alone, when Dawn has taken the Emperor, and Loken says, look, I'm staying here. This is my place. My place is here, right? Him and Abaddon talk. For the first time since it all kicked off. They just sit down and talk. And they realise they are two kindred spirits and two warriors who are tired. They're just done. They've had enough. They've had enough of the machinations of primarchs and gods and emperors. They've had enough of it, right? And they decide to take the Vengeful Spirit together and go into exile. They wander the stars on the Vengeful Spirit, getting into adventures here and there, right? Just having a good time as brothers. They've reconciled. They are brothers again. They go around the galaxy, just appearing here and there. They help out people, They fight against lots of Xenos and lots of demons and things. They fight against them. Just help people out, really. They're just like, yeah, you know what? All we want to do is just fight and be together as brothers. That's what we want to do. They are the last Lunar Wolf and the last son of Horus. Right? Things are awkward at the start. But yeah, you know what I mean? Like, the tales start appearing of this massive warship turning up and then disappearing very quickly. That kind of a thing. So they disappear for thousands of years. Thousands of years. They're in the Vengeful Spirit, and they're in the Eye of Terror as well. In and out of it, fighting people, fighting everybody. As two mercs, essentially. So they disappear for thousands. They don't fight the Imperium, though. That's one thing I will say. Alright? Loken just won't have that. Right? So he's like, no, we're not fighting the Imperium. We're not traitors anymore. But we will fight for each other. Because we're done with all that, right? So, Chaos Space Marines want to attack us, we'll attack them. If demons want to attack us, we'll go after them, right? That's what they do. So they disappear for thousands of years, until finally, when on a sortie, Loken is cornered and slain by a Black Templars kill team, led by Sigismund of all people. So Sigismund kills Garviel Loken. Alright. Number 11. This drives the meditative and calm Abaddon into a vengeful rage. He sends out the call to the traitor legionaries he thinks can be trusted, like Iskandar Khayon and all those people, and they venture to him on the Vengeful Spirit. There they form the brotherhood that will become known as the Black Legion. They hammer the rest of the traitor legions into line, all of those that they can anyway, and invade the Imperium, where the Black Templars are waiting for them. The Black Templars halt the First Black Crusade, because it's a bit ramshackle at this point, but Abaddon's only target in this Black Crusade is Sigismund, vengeance. And he slays him, after being outclassed and impaled by the Black Sword, but his own perseverance allows him to cut down the older Space Marine, in vengeance for Loken. He sends the body of Sigismund back to Terra and breaks the black sword over his knee before he sends that back too. He orders his warriors to paint their armour black in a mockery of the Black Templars. And from here, Abaddon, in Loken's memory, is determined to rule his own empire, where his warriors will always have a place and a war to fight, a realm to defend, a home to live on their own terms, away from the machinations of the false emperor. The plan to create the Great Rift, to bring this into being, begins here. So you can see how everything comes full circle, and the seeds are planted for the current Warhammer 40,000 setting by Horus's fall. By the way, Games Workshop, that's how you kill off Garviel Loken properly. Just so you know, like that's how you do it. You don't have Erebus stab him in the back to bring some lame ass demon into being. No. You do it this way. This is how you do it, and you link the entire thing back to the 41st millennium. Alright? So not only have we given Horus all the motivation in the world to turn against the Emperor, and it makes sense, we've also given Abaddon all the motivation in the world to believably make the Black Legion. And by the way, the Black Legion in this setting are not like covered in chaos bits, right? They look like old legionaries who are all painted black and gold. They literally just look like Horus Heresy legionaries who are a bit battered, bullet holes here, scratches there, but they're deadly because they're old Marines with all that experience in there as well. In black and gold. They don't have any of that stupid ass brass trim, right? Because whilst some of them follow chaos, they don't really follow chaos. They are literally the Diamond Dogs from Metal Gear Solid 5. They're mercenaries, and they fight everybody. Imperium and Chaos alike. They're there for themselves. Do you know why I've done that? Because Chaos has enough. You build out the Emperor's Children, you build out Chaos Warbands that are, not a part of anything, you build out the Iron Warriors, you build out the Death Guard, right? The World Eaters. Every flavour of Chaos has its own thing. The Black Legion don't need to be a part of it, right? The Black Legion are Renegade Space Marines. They are technically Chaos Space Marines, right? But they don't serve the Dark Gods. They serve each other. They are Marines and Warriors who always want a place in the galaxy. And by the way, their ranks get swelled by Loyalist Marines too. This gives you... It's now much more understandable why a Renegade Space Marine chapter would go over to Abaddon. Because if you've been cast out by the Imperium, there's a very good chance you look at Abaddon and Abaddon goes, yeah, so were we, man. It sucks. But come with me and we'll build something for ourselves. Dude, that's so understandable. You've given your villains reasons for doing what they do. They're now understandable and kind of right. And those are the best kinds of villains. Horus was kind of hitting on the truth. The Emperor would have replaced them in the end. He was right. Now, he may not have killed them all, right? The Emperor may have been able to explain things to him. But it didn't work out. And there are reasons why it didn't work out. The Emperor couldn't explain things to him, because by the time Horus had massive misgivings and was about to turn traitor, he was on the Golden Throne and couldn't move. Just by reordering the setting a little bit, and adding a little bit here and there, you don't have to tank the entire thing. All we've done is we've messed around with the rate at which the Primarchs were discovered. We've messed around with their relationships, right? And with the timing of certain things, like the Emperor going on the Golden Throne. And all of a sudden, an entirely different and more cohesive and more, shall we say, satisfying plot emerges. So that is what I would do with Horus, alright? Do you think it's nonsense? What do you reckon? I would buy this Black Legion, by the way. My philosophy on doing the Exile verse with the guys on the stream is I have to want to buy this army. At the end of every episode, I have to want to buy this army. And by God, I would collect this shit out of this Black Legion. I really would. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. I'll be back tomorrow with some more Hobby Nightmares. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll speak to you soon. Have a good one. Bye now.